an abusive husband drags his wife by her hair, oblivious to the truth that she owns a $500 million empire. "Get up," he roars, his voice cutting through the grand halls of their sprawling mansion. "You think you can disrespect me like this? You're nothing without me." That man is Jake Miller, 44, a sharply dressed businessman with a temper sharp enough to break bones. His fist grips a handful of his wife's golden locks as he drags her across the cold marble floor. The sound of her heels scraping against the ground is drowned out by his angry shouts. Her designer dress is torn at the seams. Blood from a broken lip smears her chin, and her knees are scraped from the shattered glass he threw moments earlier. "Please, Jake," she pleads, voice quivering. "Let me go." "Let them watch," he sneers, pulling her upright. "Let them see what happens when someone tries to embarrass me." Outside, through the grand windows, their neighbors watch in shock. One woman clutches her phone, ready to call for help. But the wife, Sara Miller, doesn't scream. Her gaze shifts, her eyes locking onto a framed photo of herself in a business suit, standing proud beside a thriving tech company logo. Olivia stares at the photo, her younger self proudly standing beside a gleaming prototype labeled Novalink Technologies. The year reads 2014, a moment frozen in time. But to her, it represents so much more, the beginning of everything. She knows the truth. She created that company, built it from the ground up under her maiden name, Olivia Ellis. To the outside world, and even to Ethan, she's nothing more than a stay-at-home wife, a shadow of a woman with no real value. But to the right investors, she is a hidden billionaire, a woman biding her time for the perfect moment to strike. Ethan slams her onto the couch, chest heaving with rage. "You'd be nothing without me, Olivia," he spits, his voice filled with venom. His hand trembles as it grips her by the shoulder. Her lip bleeds, but she remains silent, her breath steadying as she meets his gaze. "You wouldn't even have this money if I hadn't paid your debts," she says quietly, her voice cool, calm. His eyes narrow, confusion washing over him.
"What did you just say?" His voice drops, a dangerous edge creeping in. Olivia raises her chin, her eyes gleaming with a mix of sadness and defiance. "You'll find out soon enough." Her words hang in the air like a challenge. Outside, the faint sound of police sirens begins to grow louder. Someone has called 911. Blue and red lights flicker against the glass walls of their grand mansion. Ethan paces back and forth, muttering under his breath, the arrogance still dripping from his voice. "You won't press charges. You never do," he says with certainty, believing it will end like all the others. He turns his back, lost in his thoughts. Olivia rises slowly, brushing broken glass from her skirt, and then she stands still for a moment, gathering her composure. Her voice is calm, too calm, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around them. "You're right, Ethan. I won't press charges. Not tonight." His gaze hardens, not understanding. She picks up a photo frame that had fallen earlier and stares at the picture of her younger self, her reflection blending with the flashing lights from the outside. "You'll see who I really am soon," she whispers under her breath. Blue and red lights continue to flash across the white marble walls as the two police officers step into the Walsh mansion, their radios crackling. The sound of their footsteps echoes in the empty halls. "Sir, step back now," one of the officers commands. Ethan raises his hands in mock surrender, still pretending to maintain control of the situation. "This is my house. My wife and I had a disagreement, that's all." One officer, Sergeant Hill, looks at Olivia's bruised arm, the shards of glass scattered on the floor and the blood trickling from her temple. His voice softens as he addresses her. "Ma'am, do you need medical assistance?" Olivia shakes her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm fine." Ethan scoffs loudly. See? She won't press charges. She never does, he declares, casting a smug look toward the officers, confident the scene will end the same way it always does, with him untouched and Olivia silenced.
But this time, it's different. Olivia doesn't look at him. She stares out at the glowing city skyline through the window, her reflection merging with the flashing police lights. She murmurs softly to herself, her voice barely audible, but it carries an immense weight. "I used to think love meant forgiving everything," she says quietly, "until forgiveness started killing me." The officer gently leads Olivia aside. "Ma'am, we can take you somewhere safe tonight," he offers kindly. Olivia glances at Ethan, his expensive watch catching the light under the chandelier. She knows exactly what kind of man he is, but she doesn't react. Instead, she exhales deeply and replies quietly, "No, I have somewhere I need to be." Her hands tremble slightly as she signs the incident report. The officers escort Ethan to the porch, their warning clear. "Calm down, Mr. Walsh," one officer says firmly. The camera lingers on Olivia's face, bruised but unwavering. Her expression calm, yet there's a storm brewing behind her eyes. Then her voice takes on a different tone. The lighting softens, and the sirens fade into a low hum as she addresses the audience directly. "Before I tell you how all this began," Olivia says, her voice steady, "do me a favor. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what happens next will make you believe in karma. And to everyone returning, thank you. You've kept this channel alive with your support, your stories, your comments. So stay tuned till the end. You won't believe where life took me after that night." Olivia picks up her coat from the chair, slips her phone into her pocket, and walks toward the door. As the flashing police lights fade behind her, her voice remains calm, but chillingly certain. That night wasn't my breaking point. It was my awakening. 5 years earlier, Atlanta was alive with energy. A luxury rooftop restaurant glittered with string lights, champagne glasses clinking, and laughter filling the air. Guests toasted to Ethan Walsh, the rising star financial advisor whose face graced the cover of Business Elite Weekly. He stood proudly with his arm around Olivia, a picture of elegance and poise in her sleek black dress, the embodiment of the perfect couple. To the world, they were untouchable, the ideal of wealth, beauty, and success. But the closer you looked, the more cracks began to show. When a guest casually asked Olivia what she did for a living, Ethan laughed first, his voice brimming with superiority. "Olivia? Oh, she's just my lucky charm," he said. "She keeps the house pretty." The table chuckled politely, unaware of the sting that shot through Olivia's chest. She smiled, her fingers curling around the stem of her champagne glass, hiding her discomfort. Across the table, her friend Lydia Park caught her eye, a silent glance that said, "You don't have to take that." Later that night, when the guests had gone and the mansion was eerily quiet, Ethan tossed his jacket onto the sofa and muttered under his breath, "You embarrass me again. Why couldn't you just laugh along?" "I did. I just wish you didn't treat me like I'm invisible." Ethan snapped, his tone cutting. "Don't start. You're lucky you have me. You'd have nothing without me." But what he didn't know, what he could never know, was that long before she took his last name, Olivia Ellis was already somebody. She had been a computer engineer, a co-founder of Novalink Technologies, a small artificial intelligence startup she had started with Lydia in college.
They'd coded in their dorm rooms, pitched skeptical investors, and poured everything into the dream of building technology that could think, learn, and connect people around the world. When Olivia married Ethan, she took a step back from the spotlight. She sold part of her shares under an alias to avoid any conflict with his financial firm. But she didn't disappear. She kept working, quietly, sending ideas to Lydia through private channels. Ethan had no idea that the wealth he boasted about came from her silent success. The cars, the house, the firm's first major loan, all of it had been backed by dividends from Novalink that Olivia borrowed to help him when he was struggling. He never asked where the money came from, he just spent it, blissfully unaware. But as Ethan climbed higher in his career, his arrogance grew. He mocked Olivia's cooking, criticized her friends, policed her clothes. She stopped arguing. Silence became her safest choice.
Every night after Ethan fell asleep, Olivia would retreat to her home office behind a locked door. There, she worked tirelessly, surrounded by her old blueprints, patents, and designs. A sticky note on her computer, written in her late mother's handwriting, read, "Don't shrink for love." Those words became her compass, her secret strength. And so, she worked in the darkness of the night, knowing that one day she would rise. One day, she would show Ethan who she truly was. The camera pans over her desk, where an email chain titled Novalink AI Expansion Proposal lies open. Olivia smiles softly, knowing that soon Ethan would see the truth. Behind the locked door of the Walsh mansion, a second life was taking shape, one that would change everything. "This is for every woman who thought silence meant surrender," Olivia says softly. Her words are more than just a statement. They're a message to every woman who has been silenced, who has endured, and who has found the courage to rise. The shelter director, standing beside her, embraces her tightly, tears welling up in her eyes. "You've changed lives today," she whispers. Olivia smiles, but her heart beats steadily with the weight of the truth. This is more than a victory. This is restoration. As they step outside the building, reporters swarm around her. Microphones flash, capturing every moment. But Olivia, calm and composed, simply smiles. "It's not revenge," she tells the reporters, her voice firm but filled with warmth. "It's restoration." The line resonates deeply, becoming the most shared clip on every social media platform. Olivia Ellis Walsh, the woman who was once dragged by her hair, has become the face of resilience. Her story is no longer just about suffering. It's about strength, the strength that only comes when you reclaim your power. 6 months later, the scene shifts to the Fulton County Courthouse in Atlanta. The courtroom is filled with a tense silence, whispers circulating like an electric current. The back benches are packed with reporters, their cameras poised to capture the final chapter of the Walsh scandal. At the defense table, Ethan Walsh sits, noticeably thinner and pale, his once proud posture now slumped. The polished arrogance he once carried with such ease has evaporated, leaving only a shell of the man he used to be. His designer suit hangs loosely on him, like a reminder of the wealth and status he once had. Across from him sits Olivia, the image of grace and calm authority. She wears a soft gray suit, her hair pulled back neatly, every inch of her exuding confidence. Beside her is her attorney, Grace Holloway, a sharp and poised woman who commands the room with her mere presence. The judge, a stern black woman named Judge Townsend, adjusts her glasses and looks directly at Ethan. "Mr. Walsh," the judge begins, her voice unwavering, "your counsel claims you're entitled to half of Mrs. Walsh's assets under Georgia marital law. Is that correct?" Ethan's lawyer rises, his voice nervous. "Yes, Your Honor. My client supported his wife emotionally and financially during her career.
He seeks an equitable division of property. Olivia's attorney stands slowly, her expression calm but determined. With respect, Your Honor, that statement is inaccurate. She places a thick folder on the table, opening it for all to see. These are documented transfers showing that Mrs. Walsh's personal funds were used to pay her husband's business debts, mortgage defaults, and employee bonuses without reimbursement. The courtroom stirs as Ethan's jaw clenches, his face flushing with anger. Grace continues, her voice steady and unyielding. These statements also prove that Novalink dividends, Mrs. Walsh's independent income earned before the marriage, were the sole financial foundation of the defendant's company. In short, Your Honor, Mr. Walsh profited from deception and emotional abuse, not contribution. Ethan's face turns red with rage. "That's a lie," he shouts, his voice breaking with frustration. "She's twisting everything." Judge Townsend bangs her gavel, silencing him. "Enough, Mr. Walsh." The tension is palpable. Olivia remains still, her eyes steady, her hands folded in front of her. She doesn't need to say anything. Her presence speaks louder than words ever could. After reviewing the files, the judge leans forward, her gaze focused on the documents in front of her. "It is evident," she begins, her voice carrying the weight of authority, "that Mrs. Walsh was the principal financial supporter and silent co-founder of multiple assets acquired during this marriage. Therefore, the court rules in favor of the petitioner." A pause. The final blow lands, her words cutting through the courtroom like a sword. Mr. Walsh is awarded no claim to Novalink Technologies or any affiliated holdings. Divorce granted. Full asset retention to Mrs. Olivia Ellis Walsh. The courtroom falls into stunned silence. Ethan's lawyer sinks into his seat, defeated. Olivia exhales slowly, a deep breath of freedom. The tension that had been building for years finally begins to dissipate. The weight that had held her down, the chains of her past, has finally been broken. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowd around Olivia, microphones thrust toward her face. Questions fly, sharp and relentless. "Mrs. Walsh, how does it feel to win everything back? Is there anything you'd like to say to your ex-husband?" She stops on the courthouse steps, sunlight catching her hair as she turns to face the cameras. "This was never about revenge," she says softly, her voice calm but full of power. "It's about remembering your worth. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom." Applause erupts from the bystanders gathered nearby. Ethan, moments later, is escorted by security, his face hidden under dark sunglasses. As he passes Olivia, he mutters under his breath, "You destroyed me." Olivia turns her head just slightly, her tone calm but resolute. "No, Ethan, you did that yourself." 3 months later, in a small finance office, the hum of phones and keyboards fills the air. The brass sign on the wall reads, "Riverstone Capital Management, building tomorrow." Inside, a nervous man in a wrinkled navy suit clutches a folder. It's Ethan Walsh, once the king of Atlanta's financial elite, now reduced to a mere applicant, struggling to rebuild from the ashes of his past life. His hands tremble slightly as he signs the onboarding form, the weight of his fall from grace evident in every movement. The HR coordinator, a young woman with glasses, smiles politely, trying to maintain professionalism. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Walsh. Your orientation starts in Conference Room B." Ethan nods, his voice betraying his uncertainty. "Novalink? Yeah, I've heard of them." As they walk down the corridor, Ethan catches a glimpse of himself in a glass door. Tired, older, and smaller than he remembers. The hallway smells faintly of coffee and printer ink. The ghost of his former life mocks him, his mansion, the lavish parties, the arrogance, all gone. He adjusts his tie, trying to regain some semblance of confidence as they enter the conference room. Around the table sit half a dozen new hires, nervously chatting. The HR coordinator gestures toward the door. Our executive consultant will be right in. Moments later, the door opens, and the room falls silent. Walking in poised and radiant is Olivia Ellis Walsh. She's dressed in a navy power suit, a subtle gold Novalink pin glinting on her lapel. She carries a tablet under her arm, her presence commanding the room. The chatter dies instantly. Ethan's breath catches in his chest. She doesn't flinch, doesn't gloat. She simply looks at him, calm, almost kind. "Good morning, everyone," Olivia says with a professional tone. "I'm Olivia Walsh, executive consultant from Novalink Technologies. I'll be guiding you through your performance integration plan." Ethan's voice cracks. "Oh, Olivia." The room goes completely silent. The other employees exchange glances, sensing the tension. Olivia doesn't waver, her gaze unwavering. She walks to the head of the table, setting down her folder with quiet authority. "Mr. Walsh, I see you've joined the team. Welcome aboard." Ethan stammers, his face flushed with humiliation. "You did this on purpose." "No," Olivia replies, a faint smile curving her lips. "Fate did." A few employees exchange awkward smiles, unsure whether to laugh. Olivia continues the briefing, flawless in her delivery. Ethan sits in silence, his face burning with shame, realizing that he now answers to the woman he once tried to destroy. Halfway through the meeting, Olivia glances his way. "I believe in second chances," she says, her tone layered with meaning, "as long as people learn from their first." The staff chuckles politely, but Ethan lowers his eyes, his ego shattered. When the meeting ends, Olivia gathers her tablet, walking past him with grace. She pauses just long enough to say quietly, "Let's hope you've learned to treat people better this time." As she walks out, Ethan exhales a broken sigh, staring at the door she just exited. His life has been reduced to nothing, and the reality of his downfall is inescapable.
Later that evening, as the city skyline glows amber and gold beneath a fading sun, Olivia stands in her penthouse, dressed in a cream blouse, holding a glass of white wine. Her hair falls loose over her shoulders, and her face radiates calm, free from the weight of her past. Behind her, framed awards adorn the walls. Forbes Woman of the Year, Tech Visionary 2025, Philanthropist of the Decade. She steps out onto the balcony, gazing at the city lights stretching endlessly before her. This is the same city that once watched her dragged across the marble floor. Now she stands tall, unshaken, undefeated. Her voice drifts softly as she reflects on the journey that led her here. "They said I was quiet. They mistook my silence for weakness. But silence is where strength prepares its comeback." As she looks down at the bustling streets below, life continues to move forward unstoppable. Her phone buzzes on the table, and a headline glows on the screen. Olivia Ellis Walsh launches $50 million fund for domestic abuse survivors. She smiles and places her phone down gently. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan sits in a small cubicle, staring at his computer screen. A live interview with Olivia plays on the screen. She's radiant, confident, and kind. "Power isn't about control," she says in the interview. "It's about using what you've learned to lift others who can't yet stand." The camera pans to Ethan's eyes, tired and hollow with regret. His head drops into his hands as her words echo in his mind. Back on the balcony, Olivia leans against the railing, eyes glimmering under the orange sky. "For a long time, I thought forgiveness was for him, but it was for me. Letting go wasn't losing, it was winning my life back." She raises her glass toward the horizon, whispering to the wind,
Here's to every woman who learned that silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. A tear slips down her cheek, not from pain, but from peace. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Because sometimes, one story can remind the world that strength doesn't scream, it rises.